Hello YouTube, this is Hunter Search of the Brawler Cafe, bringing you a bit of a news video, much like the last video we did on the pre-release. Today we are talking about the full rules because these were initially posted on the King's Games website, which is one of the stores that is running a pre-release. And we didn't really know where they came from, whether those were just King's Games rules or what Spin Master had sent them. But today, thanks to Pineapple Bucket on Discord, who's going to one of the Cali stores, I believe, Play Live Nation, I think it's called. But he was able to give us the info directly from Spin Master, because this thing is packaged in with the kit. I'll have thonks later, but for the sake of giving you guys the news first, and then interjecting with my own thonks after, we'll just read through it. I'll plug the locations that Spin Master has deigned not to plug yet. And then we'll get into the nitty gritty. So, this kit includes products for players to use and play in the event. The exciting prizes, 32 player event, kit contents, 1 limited edition Drago set, 4 2-player Bakugan playmats, 32 Bakugan Resurgence TCG starters, and 144 Age of Aurelus booster packs. The winner of the tournament gets the Dragonoid set, and the top 4 get the 2-player playmats. We've gone over that before, of course, when we got the leak before. What's new is the number of packs, of course, what each player gets. So, this scales. This scales based on the number of players you have. So for 1 to 8 players, you get 6 packs. For 9 to 16 players, you get 6 packs. For 17 to 24 players, you get 5 packs. And for 25 to 32 players, you get 4 packs. And each player also gets Bakugan Resurgence CCG starter. Deck construction. Players can bring Bakugan and cores that they already own with them that can be chosen during deck construction. Each player must build a deck of exactly 40 cards, choosing from the cards in the TCG starter and packs that they were given for the event. Players can include more than 3 copies of a card in their deck if they have received more than 3 copies of the card in the pool of cards that they opened for the event. Players must pick 3 Bakugan and cores to go along with them from the Bakugan and cores that they have available to them from their TCG starter, and any Bakugan and cores they brought along with them. As usual, only cards that share a color with one of the 3 Bakugan chosen by the player can be included in a player's deck. Players should get 30 to 45 minutes to build their decks. No deck registration is required. Playing the tournament, so it will run in Swiss with single elimination top cut, pretty standard. 1 to 8 players is 3 rounds of Swiss into top 4 single elimination. 9 to 16 players is 4 rounds of Swiss into top 4 single elimination, and 17 to 32 players is 5 rounds of Swiss into top 8 single elimination. Each match in the Swiss round should be decided by the winner of 1 game, so it's best of 1 with a time limit of 30 minutes. And then each match in the single elimination top cut rounds should be decided by the winner of the best of 3 games and have a 55-minute time limit. If a match is still going when the time limit is reached, then play will continue until the end of the current round. I assume that means turn. I assume that's the term they're using for turn. So that's some sort of official time rolling that we have. So that's nice to have. If no winner is determined in that round, then the player with the most total cards left in their deck will win the game. If this is tied, then the player with the most cards in their hand will win the game. If that is also tied, then the player with the most energy in play will win the game. Okay. In a best of 3 single elimination match, if the time limit is reached, follow the above procedure. If, after the winner of the current game is determined and both players have won 1 game, then a 3rd game in that match must be started. The first player to deal damage to their opponent's deck will win the 3rd sudden death game, winning the match. If that first card turned up is a flip card that stops the damage and can be paid for, then no damage was dealt and the game continues. What? That doesn't make sense. What? I'll get into it later. Okay. Prizes. As stated above, the first place player gets limited edition Dragonoids, and top 4 players get 2-player playmats, and then additional booster packs are given out as prizes. 1 to 8 players, you get... So, here's the thing here. 1 to 8 players and 17 to 32 players are actually identical. For both of those, you get first place 4 booster packs, second place 3 packs, third to fourth 2 packs, and then fifth to eighth 1 pack. Then for 9 to 16, we have this scaled up pricing of first place gets 5 packs, second place gets 4 packs, third to fourth get 3 packs, fifth to eighth get 2 packs, and 9th to 16th, it says 8th to 16th, but that obviously means 9th to 16th get 1 pack. Any product left over from the event should enter the inventory of the store. We do definitely want you to give out the prizes to top finishers, so keeping them for the store or selling them will be problematic for us. We hope this guide is helpful. Thank you again for being involved in the Bakugan Age of Aurelus pre-release. Alright, so that's all the deets. There's still a pretty important thing missing from those details, but we'll get into that in a moment. Before we dive into the opinion part of this, I just want to plug the three locations that I know of that have not been posted by Bakugan themselves. We tweeted this out a couple days ago, but just want to take the opportunity here to plug them again. So we've got TPK Gaming on September 1st at Glen, Illinois, right down there. You can see it. Go to the tweet or whatever. And yeah. And then we've got Play Live Nation on the 31st in Fullerton, California. And then lastly, this one does not have a poster. We have Deep Comics in Alabama. Yeah. Deep Comics in Alabama. Now, let's get into the nitty-gritty of this nonsense. Okay, so first off, it's very clear that this is just paper packaged in the kit. So very important question, because like there are several people running pre-releases like Rajin and Monty Kev who don't have this information yet and only have this information now 4 days before the pre-releases happen, because this happened and we were able to get that information. I was able to take them, hey, this is the information you need, because they packaged this with the kit. And it would be the same case for the Upper Hand, because Upper Hand as would have only been able to order on the 25th. I went into detail on this. Basically, some shenanigans happened. I went into detail on Twitter. I don't want to make this video about that. But the Upper Hand wasn't able to order, and wasn't able to really get into contact until the 25th, even though they've been trying tons. And probably won't even get the kit until a couple days before the pre-release. And they wouldn't have that information to give to us, the players, to have any idea how this is supposed to run until a couple days before. This is literally, like, if you remember way back when I made that first video about Spin Master and professionalism, this is literally the sort of thing that caused the big argument that ended up with VK leaving the Brawler Cafe Discord server, because people were really upset that we were only getting the real details on the Emerald City Comic Con event a couple days, like a week before the actual con. And people were really upset about that. You can't plan that way. And then at MomoCon, how things worked changed a bunch. It was never announced in any capacity. And then at Anime Expo, a week and a half before the con itself happened, they announced this invitational tournament. And then there's this, where multiple of the locations, it is 4 days before the pre-release happens, and multiple of the locations that have signed up for pre-release have not been announced by Bakugan themselves. And the rules have not gotten to multiple of the stores running pre-releases. Like, off the top of my head, I know those three that I just showed you. Then there's Upper Hand, and then there's Rajin's own Anubis, whatever the rest of it is, that he announced as well. And nothing from Bakugan themselves. 5 locations that are supposed to be having pre-releases that have gotten no sort of announcement from Bakugan themselves. And it's kind of ridiculous. And they don't... I know that RIW doesn't have the info. Monty Kev and Rajan, as far as I know, didn't have this sort of info. He got the info he had from Monty Kev, who got it from us reporting on the leak that we talked about in the previous video about the pre-release. What is so difficult about putting this into an email and sending it to all of the people who you are in talks with to send pre-release kits? What is so difficult about that? Like, this shouldn't be hard. And that's not even talking about the whole Bakugan themselves hasn't announced 5 of the 12 total locations. If those are all the locations, there might be ones that we don't even know about at all. And that makes this situation far, far worse than what we saw with any of the cons, because the cons we at least knew that they were happening like months ahead of time. We knew those locations. We didn't know anything. There's been no announcement still 4 days before the event from Bakugan themselves about these locations. Oh my god, it's the worst. It's really, really bad, and they seem to be making no effort to fix these problems. But regardless, moving on from that, okay, so let's talk more about the rules themselves. So, one thing. So, one of the biggest questions is, hey, how are we determining who gets what TCG starters? Because there are obviously going to be some better than others, and depending on what cards you pull, you might want specific factions. And like there are certain TCG starters that are way, way better than others, and one of the ones in the Resurgence TCG starters is straight up mispackaged, has an incorrect character card, and the Bakugans that go with it don't match either the incorrect character card it has or the proper character card it should have. And there's nothing, it just says each player should also receive a Bakugan Resurgence TCG starter. Doesn't say anything about how you should distribute them. Should it be random? Should it be some sort of... Do players choose themselves? Like, oh my god. It's a mess. So that's the whole thing. Then there's the whole... I ragged on this before when I did the video before, but the whole being able to bring your own Bakugan and Bakugan course is really, really dumb. It gives hardcore players a huge advantage that they already, like, hardcore players will already have a big advantage because they'll go in knowing the contents of these starter decks. They'll know the content. They'll know a lot about what's in the set in the first place, as well as their own experience with the game from playing it a bunch will give them an edge. They don't need an additional edge of being able to bring in whatever Bakugan and Bakugan course they want, so they can use the stuff they pull no matter what factions it is. Like if you're a new player and you're just going with you don't have any existing Bakugan or anything, you can't use any Ventus cards because none of those starter decks have any Ventus Bakugan. So you're just completely locked out of Ventus cards. How this really should have gone is just you have your TCG starter, maybe have players pick them after they've opened their pack so that they can make their decision based on the factions that they've pulled. But they should not be able to bring in their own Bakugan or their own Bakugan cores. That should not be a thing, especially because being able to, like, even being able to bring your own Bakugan cores is like, okay, cool. I have optimized Bakugan cores and my opponent doesn't, which is like, even if your Bakugan don't even end up being that much stronger than your opponents, just the ability to go, I have way better cores than you is going to be a huge edge. And that's really not great. That's not how these really should be going. Like, draft and sealed formats like these are supposed to put players on a relatively equal playing level. Not much you can do about experience, but this huge edge from being able to bring in whatever Bakugan and Bakugan cores you want should not be here. There's no reason for this to be here when each player is receiving 3 Bakugan anyways. The only excuse for this would be the defective Darkest Hydronoid starter set. But even then, there's nothing wrong with ruling, hey, we're going to play this as just using that incorrect character card and it's still using those Flaming Fist cores. We know that's not how the Bakugan is, but that's how it's going to function in this sealed format. There would be nothing wrong with running it that way. So you know. Alright. Next thing I want to talk about, the time limits on rounds is really strange. So, for the past 6 weeks, I have been helping run the Upper Hand tournaments every Tuesday. I did not go this week because if the pre-release does happen, because that's still up in the air to a degree, I would have to go into Mississauga, which is a 2.5 hour bus trip for me, twice this week. And I just decided I'll just go for the pre-release and not for the normal tournament. And last week I even ran the tournament myself because neither Lamar or Ellie was there. So I know from first-hand experience, 30 minutes for best of 1 and 55 minutes for best of 3 is not what you need. I have literally never seen a game go past 20 minutes, a single game go past 20 minutes, and we've been running with 40 minutes best of 3 with no real issue. And it's really, really bizarre that they have these high time limits. Like, I'm like having a bit extra time, like maybe 45 minutes, because there might be new players. Players are playing with cards that they haven't played with before. Stuff like that. I get about 55 minutes, and especially the 30 minutes for best of 1. That is frankly absurd. And the time rules, I actually hadn't really read through that section before I did my read-through here on camera. And I am not happy about that, especially if that ends up being like the official time rule going forward into the future. Like, okay, so we play out the rest of the turn, but so it makes sense that, hey, player with the most deck wins at the end of that time. But if it's tied, it goes to the player who has the most hand, and if they're tied on hand, it goes to the player with the most energy? What? Why? You just have them go for one more round, and whoever deals damage first, like you have in the sudden death, if they're tied, just have the next player to take damage lose. It is that simple. It is not difficult. It should not become... There's no reason for it to come down to hand size and energy amount. Now, this isn't so much about the pre-release because, like, a tie is pretty unlikely to happen. But if this is the time rule they intend to apply for tournaments at large, you need to not. You need to not do that. Because that is really... oh my god, that's really bad. That is really, really bad. Yeah. Hand size and energy amount should not be determining who wins in time. That's absurd. And it's really weird when reading these sudden death rules, and if you flip damage, if your first damage is a flip card, and you can pay for it, then there's no damage. What do you mean? A flip is still damage. Like, you flipping that, how is that not damage? That doesn't make sense. And that's so RNG based. Why would, like, sudden death is already super RNG based and gives a huge edge to the player who has a faster deck. So why are you introducing more RNG with, I could flip a pact on my first damage and stop the damage and make it go to a second? Why? That doesn't make any sense to be a thing. Again, this isn't so much about the pre-release, but just time rules in general. And if this is what they intend to use when they proceed to tournaments, please hear me. Don't do that. That is an awful time protocol. Now, lastly, we have the scaling, pricing, and number of packs you get. So, I made this little thing over here. Let me pull it up. Basically figuring out, okay, so with each possible because it scales. You get more packs if there are less players, which is really weird. I don't really know why they're doing this. And then the prize scaling is even weirder because, as I said when I was reading through it, 1 to 8 players and 17 to 32 players have identical prize payouts, but 9 to 16 players has like double. Like, it's 15 packs total in the prize payout for 1 to 8 players and 17 to 32 players, but 9 to 16 players gets you 31 packs in the prize payout. And at 9 to 16 players, you're still getting the 6 packs per person that you would in 1 to 8. It's really bizarre. I don't know why they're doing it like this. Now, as far as profit for the store goes, that isn't too big of a deal, assuming that the extra starter decks are able to move. However, if they don't, like if all of the really desirable ones get taken, these are also starter decks that can be found at retail stores, and many players who are already playing the game will already have one if they wanted one. So I don't have the most faith that these starter decks will move if you end up like with 8 to 16 of these left over, for example, because I want to compare like the 17 to 24 to 25 to 32 or 9 to 16. And then if those starter decks are able to move, then you're fine, you're golden. If they're not, the difference in the packs you have left over to sell versus what you have made in the ridiculous $40 entry fee is rather massive, because like, all right, 16 players, 17 spare, 32 players, 1 spare. So that's a difference of $240 in entry fees, but in packs, that's what? That's $64. That's nearly a tenfold difference. Again, assuming that starter decks can't move. And like, this is basically why I really think that they shouldn't have had starter decks in there. They should have just had like, okay, we're going to include a bunch of Bakugan in here that players will draft for. And they will have to build a deck just out of their packs and draft for Bakugan that fit their faction. Do something like that. That way, you don't have to include all these starter decks that a bunch of your existing players will already have. New players will have a deck that they'll be able to play going forward out of this pre-release event regardless. You won't have the Bakugan Resurgence stuff mixed in with an Age of Aurelus pre-release. And you can, like, okay, so the problem with the entry fee is that despite the huge profit margins, the entry fee is close to MSRP. Now, a good-hearted store, like the Upper Hand, God bless that store owner's soul, can choose, hey, we're not going to charge that much because that's ridiculous. And he's been doing that sort of thing all the time. Like, he imported Bakugan Resurgence packs and was selling them for just $4, even though he definitely paid more than that per pack on them, since he had to get them from get someone to get them from a retail store and then have them imported. But if the problem is that if you have the entry fee lower, a store can go, well, a store does have this incentive now that they might not want to even, it's less profitable for them to run the pre-release than to just sell the decks. This is obviously not what you want. And the reason that's an issue, the reason that's not even a thing at all, is because the starter decks are even in there instead of just having some Bakugan in there instead. I don't know. It's not a perfect idea, and it could definitely use some refinement. But I think it's better than what we've got going right now because I think the current setup is really, really flawed, and I really hope that Spin Master takes some time to look at how they ran it this time and make serious improvements, because I don't think the way it is right now is really acceptable. Yeah, I'm excited to have some sort of LGS thing happening, and the fact that Upper Hand is very unlikely to hit. Well, like, I was excited that Upper Hand would have some spare Age of Aurelus packs, but now, like, it's going to be much less than we would have thought they would. But I don't know. It'll be fun in that regard. They'll all be going out to players anyways. It's not like the players are getting access to any less. But I think it's really weird to have this situation where the players would, the best value for the players would to be have a 9 to 16 player pre-release, because everyone is getting at least 7 packs in that version, and you can get as many as 11 if you win. Versus the store, which wants to have as close to 32 people as possible, because the starter decks, the spare starter decks, aren't quite as likely to move, and unless you're in like the much lower ranges of people, you're just going to have the less people you have, the less money you'll be able to make because of the packs, the spare packs thing. Again, all that hinges on the starter decks not really moving, which I don't think they will. Since, as I said, most existing fans will already have the one they want, and not a lot of fans are going to want multiple, so they'll get, if they don't already have the one they want, they'll get the one they want from this pre-release. So the main people who would be interested in picking it up are players who come in after the pre-release, which is good to have those star decks in the store, but as far as making money off this pre-release goes, you know, profit margins are still all really high for the store compared to any other pre-release. So it's not really an issue for the stores being able to make profit in the first place. But I don't think this current system is a fantastic idea. That's all I've got for this. Yeah, that's how the pre-release is going to work. I finished that in the first 5 minutes, but regardless, this is Henry Church signing off.